Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Comblusier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar focuses on Grid Metals, which is itself focused on exploring and developing its assets in Manitoba and Ontario. It has a diverse portfolio of both base metal and lithium properties. And the company is commencing drilling for both these commodities at its Manitoba property starting in January of this year. After completing a successful drill program for nickel at its Bannockburn property in Ontario. Today I have with me on the webinar Robin Dunbar, who's the President and CEO, and Dave Peck, the Vice President of Exploration and Business Development at Grid. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Robin and Dave will provide an update on Grid Metals, including recent work that's been completed and what they're going to be doing in 2022. And then in the second part of the webinar, we'll take your questions live. So please send in any questions you may have using the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. So for Grid Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Grid Metals corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Grid Metals specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Dave and Robin to update you on Grid Metals and what you have to look forward to with the company.
Thanks, Taylor. We're happy to have the chance to present today and bring everybody up to date on the our activities. And I think the slide presentation should pop up here in a second. It's been an interesting time for us, and going into this year, we wanted to set ourselves up to proceed with some of our projects in Manitoba in particular. We're in an environment that the battery metal space is really accelerating in terms of the commodity prices and interest. And I think we're really well poised to take advantage of this. And it's a pretty exciting time. We've got a lot of activity with the drill coming in the next few months, and really trying to get in and add value. Just just reiterate what Taylor said, we'll be making some forward-looking statements in this presentation, so please be cautioned about that. I'm just going to do a quick overview and then hand it over to Dave to talk to our projects and primarily our activities in Manitoba. So for those of you not familiar with the company, I've been with the company for many years. The company was used to be called Mustang Minerals. It was recapitalized in 2018. Grid Metals were focusing on the battery metals. Dave joined us 2 years ago, and Dave has a very strong career in exploration, including with Anglo America, their nickel search group, and with North American Palladium before their buyout by Implats at the end of 2019. And Dave's been around the world and seen many projects, and so it's able to benchmark what we're doing at Grid. Our market cap is about $15 million, so still really low. We just completed a transaction in January this year where we sold 25% interest in our lithium properties, which had a book value of about $500,000 for $2.25 million US, and a royalty on top of that, and then a private placement with Lithium Royalty Corp, which brought in $6.3 million, and we're using that money to fund our lithium and some of our nickel exploration going forward. And we have a strong technical team in the company, and we're pleased to we announced today that Kerry Galischuk, who's a very experienced lithium geologist. Kerry worked for the Tanco mine in Manitoba and has written many papers and is a real leader in the lithium space. So we're really pleased to have him on staff. And also Ian Ward has rejoined the company. Ian's a senior metallurgical consultant. He was the president of Micon, and Ian's helping us to form a project team for our projects in Manitoba to head up economic studies, permitting, and environmental work. So we're really trying to move these projects forward. Just to give a quick corporate overview, as I said, we're focused on nickel, copper, PGM. In the last couple of years, we've been working on our East Bull Lake project. We still like that project. We're still doing some work on that and have some interesting scientific information coming out of that that's going to help us going forward. We have just completed our Bannockburn project. We just signed a contract today to move forward with some metallurgical testing. The large low-grade nickel project in Ontario that has some massive sulfide lenses with it. So with high nickel prices, that's very interesting. And we got all our permits and to start exploration in Manitoba, where we have put about $25 million into that project over the years. It's a very interesting belt because it has both nickel, copper, and lithium. Today, I was looking at some lithium long-term prices from consensus views. They've all been bumped up. The product we would make is lithium spodumate concentrate, and the consensus views on that from a lot of the banks have gone up dramatically. So it's a really good environment for us for exploration and what we're doing. We really like the potential of the project in Manitoba, both for base metals and for nickel. So I think what I'm going to do is hand it over to Dave to talk about quickly on the commodities and what we're doing with our projects.
Thanks, Robin. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to you today. We're very excited at Grid. We're really poised for success, and we're in the space of a rising market for both the lithium side of things and our base metal projects. We've built a really high quality portfolio, especially for a small junior. We've got some assets just recently added that are going to be attractive to major mining companies, and we've got some interest in those already. The story on the EVs and the rise of the electric vehicle. When I was with North American Palladium, that was a bad thing, but I think I'm on the right side of it right now on that trend, and I think we're going to see strong prices in the key commodities we're after in the battery metal space for some time now. I'm going to jump over to the sort of technical side of things here. Those slides are available for you to review. We're going to start with our Manitoba projects, and I'll come back to Bannockburn and the Ontario projects later. So a lot of investors are wondering, where does this project come from and how come we haven't heard much about it from Grid for the last couple of years? When I joined the company, Robin was engaged in negotiations with the First Nation to redo the exploration agreement to make it more current and more equitable for all parties concerned. And that was really the key to returning to what is our flagship property in the company. To date, the company spent over $25 million in the Southeast Manitoba, what we call the Mayville project, and actually encapsulates 3 different projects, 1 lithium project and 2 base metal projects. And so we'll go into the details of what this project's all about and where we're headed and our current exploration activities on these properties. Effectively, this map is just showing the location of, and I'm going to use the whiteboard here and hopefully it works, of these 3 properties. We have the dominant land position in what's called the Bird River Greenstone Belt. It's part of the sort of Superior Boundary Zone Greenstone Belts on the edge of the Western Superior. It's happy hunting ground for nickel. The same kind of terrain hosts major nickel camps at Thompson and Raglan, and an emerging camp in the Labrador Trough, and of course Sudbury. And a similar geological environment, we have the Ring of Fire, which has been in the news a lot lately with the basically takeover from Noront by Wailu, and BHP was obviously in the running there as well. So we're in a very similar geological environment, but it's not a belt that has captured a lot of attention, other than the fact that it's Canada's only producing spodumene mine at the moment at Tanco. The Tanco mine is really key to our lithium sort of project here, just because of the fact that it's a world-class rare metal mine that's been active for almost 50 years now. It's been in operation. It's produced cesium, tantalum, and now spodumene, spodumene concentrate, and that looks like they're going to expand that circuit. So we're in a really great position to potentially, sell spodcon from our lithium property here directly to Tanco. We've got a great partner in the Lithium Royalty Corp. They're a 25% owner and a joint venture partner for all the exploration expenses coming. So just showing you where that is. Here's our Mayville. It's called the Donner Lake Pegmatite Lithium Project, and here's our Mayville Copper Nickel PGE project. And down here we have our Makwa project, and the Tanco mine sits here. So collectively, we've got about 20 kilometers of strike length of the Bird River Sill, which hosts the copper nickel PG resources we have on the books. And then we've got the north limb of a huge pegmatite province, very prospective. It's amazing how little drilling has been done actually for spodumene in this belt. It's starting to ramp up. There's a number of people that have come in the last couple of years, but we've got a fantastic property position. We'll talk about that in a minute. So what the cornerstone here, I'll just clear the whiteboard. The cornerstone resource here was published in 2014, and it includes a copper-rich magmatic sulfide deposit at Mayville, that northern property on the northern limb of the belt, and the Makwa project in the south, nickel-rich. And those two projects delivered a pit-constrained indicator resource of about 34 million tons. You can see the grades there and the amount of contained metal. At current prices, about sort of $3 to $4 billion of in situ metal value. And then we also have some other exploration targets. I'm going to talk to you about that because that's the current focus of our activities on these two properties. So the PEA was done in 2014. There's really good metallurgical work that's been done subsequent to that that wasn't factored in. The price deck's actually better now. The FX is better. The project's going to look better than it did then. However, we've taken the decision as a company to try and unlock more potential directly adjacent to these two resources. So we're now drilling on the Makwa project. We just finished 10 holes there, and we're moving the drills up to the Mayville property, and we're going to focus the drilling there for the next few weeks on the lithium dike, spodumene bearing dikes there. The PEA is available on our website, so I won't get into the details, don't have the time to get into it. Like I said, these numbers will change, and the real focus for the company is to make this project a no-brainer. We've got some great advantages here, having potential feed from two different sites. Mayville is an excellent area for development of a mill, centralized concentrator, and we feel there's terrific upside on both projects for additional higher grade resources, both open pit and underground. So most of the drilling has been done to define open pit resources, and both projects have great potential to go underground as well as expand along strike. So here's what we're doing right now. We started drilling in early January with one rig. We brought a second rig in. Major Drilling out of Winnipeg is our contractor, and they're doing a terrific job for us. We've drilled basically 10 holes. There's one or two that we'll report on as well that aren't quite compiled yet, but call it a dozen holes altogether that will be producing results for the coming weeks. We have rush assayed one hole. It's called MAC 2202, which was targeting this plate EM anomaly here. These are all geophysical targets that were generated in 2018, basically after the company had kind of ceased work when the nickel and copper prices fell following the financial crisis. So this is all new stuff, new targets that were generated, and we've had good success testing all of these, and we'll be reporting these new results in the next coming weeks, like I said. The outline of the pit-constrained resource at Makwa is here. It's 7 million tons at 0.6% nickel, nearly 1% nickel equivalent when you add in the palladium, which is quite high, actually. So there's a good sort of correlation between nickel and palladium at Makwa. We feel that all of these will contribute to a bigger resource, some underground and some open pit. Some of this sits in the flank or actually within the pit shell for the current resources. And so, you know, a sort of general strategic plan for the company is, let's see if we can double the resources at Makwa and improve and increase the amount of higher grade resources. So really focused on the nickel. And we're also seeing some potential to add some quite cobalt rich mineralization at Dumbarton. So stay tuned for the initial news release on that drilling at Dumbarton. On the lithium side, we talked about the location of the Donner Lake Lithium Property. It's just south of our copper nickel resource at Mayville. We won't get into the details of the Mayville deposit itself, just similar to what I was saying about Makwa, that it's got a lot of upside, a lot of exploration upside, because the initial phase of drilling, resource drilling, was really focused on shallow open pitable resources. So there's lots of upside potential there. But let's switch gears to Donner Lake. This Bird River Greenstone Belt has a prolific number of pegmatite dike swarms, spodumene, so-called LCT, lithium, cesium, tantalum, very enriched, very fractionated pegmatites. Bannockburn Lake is the largest known, and it's the sort of the resource base for the Tanko mine. Like I said, that's been in production for nearly 50 years. And we're hopeful that we'll find something that size on our property. But to date, the indications are that we've got a lot of spodumene-bearing dikes. 3 of them have had some drilling on them, and a lot of the other ones haven't had any drilling. So we're off to a good start in terms of where we're beginning on Donner Lake. There was a historical resource published by the Manitoba government based on drilling that was done in the 50s by Viola McMillan's company. And we've, you know, taken a look at that, where that resource came from 2 dikes, 2 of the dikes that we're interested in, the Northwest Dike and the main dike. And we'll go to a map and show you where those things are. So this is kind of the prospective area for the Donner Lake pegmatite swarm. And this little inset map would fit in here. This whole contact, over 8 kilometers long, is highly prospective. But the only real detailed work, the previous drilling and some detailed mapping, has been in this small area here. There's a scale bar here to show you the scale. That's 1 kilometer. The main dike's been drilled as recently as 2018 by Grid Metals, and those results were published last fall and revised and reviewed last fall in a press release by the company. And the Northwest Dike, that was the other one that was included in that historical resource. So as a starting point, we probably are fairly confident that we can repeat that and get to the 3.5 million tons, 1.28% that was calculated by the Manitoba government. That's non-compliant, and obviously we have to do things to get to 43-1 compliance. So all of the drilling we're doing now is with that end in mind. But right now we're really trying to confirm how many dikes, how big are they, that have this high-grade spodumene, and what our sort of resource drilling strategy needs to be. So we're in the exploration drilling phase. We're starting here on the Northwest Dike. We'll be moving a drill to the West Dike actually any day now, and then we'll get back to the Northwest Dikes. Some historical results here just to bring that level of confidence to people that are looking at this project. It's legit. These are some of the historical widths on the Northwest Dike drilling, up to 1.5% over 26 feet, or about 8 meters. And then the main dike drilling from 2018 that was done by Mustang, a little bit narrower, but very consistent and quite high grade. between sort of 1.5 and 1.8% lithium oxide. There are some cesium-rich dikes in this area, and there's also anomalous tantalum. So we are in the same kind of geochemical environment, geological environment as Tanco, and we're hoping to develop something, 10 to 20 million tons of that 1.5% lithium, something that we can sell an SC6 spodumene concentrate to the market. So stay tuned. Results are going to be coming in fast and furious over the next, couple of months, 3 months. We may end up finishing off this first phase of exploration drilling around the end of March. It depends on the weather conditions and permitting, but we'll take that as it comes. But we hope to get, a good number of holes in the northwest dikes, the west dikes, and the main dike. We probably won't get to the south dike any on this project, but that's something for the future. So this is just sort of a postage stamp of that big prospective contact between the granite terrain to the south and the greenstone belt, which hosts these dikes in the north. So we're really at the starting point of what we hope to be a fantastic discovery program that'll produce a really good, high-grade, sort of world-class spodumene resource here on our Donner Lake property. I'll just flip back to, if I can get this to go back quickly. No, we'll just take our time. We'll start talking about Bannockburn. We're going to be releasing the final set of results from our 2021 drilling. The Bannockburn project is all about bulk nickel at the moment, analogous to Crawford Nickel, or Canada Nickel's Crawford project, which there's lots of technical documentation out there on that and lots of interest. They've done well and generated a strong market cap and investor following, and it's all about metallurgy. The grades are low, but the sulfide is a secondary sulfide with very high nickel content. So it's amenable to producing really top-in-class nickel con grades, and that's the whole trick to these types of deposits. So we have a zone called the B zone. There was drilling done in the late 90s and early 2000s, some by Outokumpu, the previous owner, some by Mustang Minerals Grid's predecessor. And it showed a trend of about a kilometer long, associated with a serpentinized ultramafic body, strong magnetic response, as you can see on this map. And we announced a few weeks ago results from 3 more holes from that 2021 drill program with really, comparable grades and thicknesses to what they have in the main deposit at Crawford. So we're encouraged by that. We also have massive sulfide potential on this property. There's 3 massive sulfide zones. Sorry about that. The C zone is one of them. There's a couple other ones on the same property. This little inset map shows where the B zone is. There's 2 major ultramafic complexes on the property, and they both have big scale. So we know now the B zone is actually open to the north, it's open to the south, and it's open to the east towards this. Sorry, the B zone, it's open to the east towards the C zone. Very original naming of these zones, but however, it is what it is. But the massive sulfide, it's conventional komatiite hosted, channelized lava flows with really high grade nickel sulfide accumulating in these channels. So C zone's one example. There's another one to the south called Thalweg. That's really wide open. There's lots of untested conductors, and we see these as a potential sweetener to a bulk mining operation here focused on the B zone type mineralization, where you get a good pit with great strip ratio, and trying to repeat what Canada Nickel's done with Crawford, but having these sweeteners as well of high grade komatiite hosted nickel. And then finally, I'm just gonna get over to East Bull Lake. And we took a bit of a break and took a few months following the last drill program in 2021, and did some more surface sampling, proof of concept sampling on geophysical targets. This map is an attempt to express where we're at right now. We're really keen on the project. We didn't lose interest in it, and the news flow was kind of this break. The break in news was this pause we took to really analyze the data. We had a lot of drilling data from 2020 and 2021. We had a lot of geophysical data and 3D modeling work, and basically, in a nutshell, here's where we're at. We focused on what was called the Parisian Lake area and defined a 1.5 kilometer long trend. The recent surface mapping has shown that goes for another 2 kilometers to the west. It's basically open. The mineralization is hosted in a trough structure. It's an embayment along the footwall of the intrusion, and it's very, very similar to the setting of the Sudbury ore bodies in the adjacent Sudbury camp. So East Bow Lake's only 80 kilometers from Sudbury, and very, very similar geological setting. And the thing that's really come to fruition for us is we did intersect some massive sulfides, both nickel-rich and copper-rich end members, sitting underneath this palladium-dominant disseminated sulfide mineralization that's been the focus for most of the previous drilling at East Bow Lake. And lo and behold, the geochemical data that we got for both the massive and the disseminated show they're part of a family. They're part of a big fractionated magmatic sulfide system. Mineralization at East Bow Lake is generally outcropping as disseminated. There is some massive sulfide outcrops actually in the Parisian Lake area, and they occur as the lenses, kind of indications that you're in the right place to find a more significant accumulation. And the whole model's come together. We have structural troughs along this irregular footwall with the older basement gneisses, and the severe brecciation of the footwall, and basically a disseminated zone forming higher up, which is copper and palladium rich, and nickel rich massive sulfide occurrences sitting directly underneath. So we believe it's very analogous to Sudbury. It wasn't the kind of model we were starting with, but we've really increased our focus going forward on testing both zones, both the disseminated and the massive. And all of these anomalies that are circled in blue are resistivity lows or areas of higher conductivity. And what we haven't shown on this map, there's literally hundreds of EM targets, EM anomalies sitting in these resistivity lows, any of which could be massive sulfide related. Squiggles or thick zones, or hopefully big lenses. So you can imagine adding that value to the disseminated mineralization changes the entire complexion of what we originally started calling a palladium project, but now we're going to call it copper nickel PGE. And we've got some proof already with, as I said, the previous intersections of copper rich vein type mineralization like you see in Sudbury in the footwall, and also sort of sublayer type nickel-rich mineralization sitting directly underneath the overlying intrusion. So this is really good news for us, and we're going to really take some time here and make a good plan and see how we want to finance this project going forward. But it's just begging for drilling, and all of these areas, almost all of it has no drilling at all. So these new target areas are substantial. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Robin, and he can sort of wrap things up here for you.
Yeah, the one other thing that we announced today was the acquisition of the mineral exploration licenses in northern Manitoba, and we've just obtained the title for those. I think we're going to be coming out with more information on the MELs. I think in a nutshell, in the layman's language, they're very large exploration licenses. The main target is like a Raglan belt scale target. It's 90 kilometers long. Dave's worked on the Raglan belt and the Fox River belt that we acquired, and it's the type of project we're going to take that out to the market and look for a major funding partner. There's more and more interest in those types of deposits from the big integrated mining companies like BHP. Wyloo's done a transaction in Canada. Bill Gates and a group of investors in the States have a company that's using AI to look for those type of targets. So we're pretty optimistic that's a long-term project with a lot of blue sky that we'll be able to attract funding to, and that's I think right down Dave's alley in terms of a project that we think in the longer term will add some value to grid. So we got it for a steal. The mineral exploration licenses are, for the size of ground, you get very inexpensive to hang on to. So we think that's a good addition to our portfolio going forward. Just to give a quick overview of some of the market comps, I mean, the grid market caps moved up a bit from the time we did this slide. So we're in the contained metal, it's the amount of metal that we have in our deposit, in our case, open pit constrained, in our market cap. And you can see some of these other kind of comparable companies, the amount of metal, and they're just getting more value for the projects. I think the key here is that, we're now going to be, putting some, effort and time and money into our base metal project in Manitoba. And that's going to, we hope, start to get people more focused on, that and the value that we have there. And, as I say to people, our market cap based on just the Makwa project alone back in 2008 was $100 million. And, when there was real interest in the nickel story. And so we hope to reach those levels again. Some of the junior lithium companies, Green Technology Metals, some of these Australian companies, you see their resources, 4.8, 7.3, 13 million tons of, 1 to 1.3% lithium, either in resource or reserve. The market cap's up to $1 billion. Some of these companies are newly listed. So we think there's a lot of potential upside for us as we try to prove up initially an inferred resource at our lithium project. And, we're going to look to either spin out or do some kind of transaction to monetize the value in our lithium portfolio sometime later this year. So it's a really strong lithium market right now. There's a lot of interest that, the supply demand fundamentals look good. We think that our project, we've got the potential to find something pretty special out in Manitoba. So, it's a great target model for us to chase right now. Yeah, so I think just to sum it up, this is a tremendously active time for us. We're cashed up. Our current, as of today, we have about $8 million in the till. In ballpark figures, we plan to spend another $2 million of our own money and some contribution from Lithium Royalty Corp. And by the time we're finished our drilling program, we'll still have roughly $5 million in working capital. We'll have done significant program at Donner Lake Lithium. We'll have done the drilling at Makwa, and we've now completed the drilling and starting the metallurgical work at Bannockburn Nickel. So, tons of work being completed and progressing these projects. As a junior, we think the best way to get people's attention is with the drill. So, as I say, we've got a lot of drill results coming out, and we're going into a strong price environment, and we think it's going to be an exciting time ahead for Grid Metals. So that's the summary of our activities, and we're happy to open it up to questions.
Great, thank you very much, Robin and Dave. So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar, and just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions to the chat at any time. So to start off, one of the questions was just asking about your cash balance, but you just talked about that. So I think that covered everything on that front. You have another one here. It sounds like you have a lot of geophysics already on your nickel PGE properties, but are you planning any more, particularly groundwork this summer, next winter?
Nothing immediately. We're pretty happy with the data we have. We've got ground and airborne coverage on most of the projects. The ones that we are looking at potentially to do some work later this year would be the new mills that Robin mentioned in northern Manitoba. Some of those properties have fairly dated surveys. Methodologies improved a lot. The ones, a couple near Thompson would probably do that. In the Fox River, actually, the data is terrific, so we don't have to do anything right off the hop. So we've inherited a huge amount of historical data, high quality data there.
Yeah, I think we'd also discuss potentially some, depending on our results from the Nickel, some downhole
borehole surveys.
Borehole
yes.
survey, yeah, just to, if we find something of interest to try to follow that. Yeah. And we do have some. We do have a lot of it's certainly interesting targets to follow up on that property for sure. So
great. Okay, another question here: what size of drill program what size of drill program could be contemplated to test the targets at East Bull Lake?
I think the next phase of work, we'd probably want to look at something around 5,000 meters. So, there's 6 or 7 really obvious targets to go after to, find these channels, big troughs, or we call them bayments in Sudbury, and test both the disseminated and the massive at the same time. So, 3 or 4 in each would be a good test of each one. So 30 holes, yeah. Maybe 10,000 meters. 5 to 10.
Yeah, and I think the methodology there would be, you do widely spaced holes where you think the good areas are, and then do downhole to see if there's, massive sulfides would show up well on downhole survey. So you could cover a fair amount of territory fairly efficiently and test the methodology, see how that goes. Yeah.
Just for people's reference and scale, some of the plus million-ton ore bodies in Sudbury, you could fit 10 or 20 of them in the target areas that we have in each target area. So they're difficult targets. They're not the easiest things to find. But with the data we have, we're pretty confident we get the drill in the right place to see what these conductors are all about that really haven't been tested.
Okay, and so at East Bull Lake, I guess, is the focus mainly on testing those new targets, or are you going to be dedicating any drilling to the kind of existing areas where you were drilling in 2020 and 2021?
We'll do both, but the next phase, the first thing we want to do is see if some of these new target areas are, better than what we've been drilling. And really get to that two-phased approach, two-pronged strategy of testing both the massive and the disseminated, which we hadn't really been doing up till now. We will go back to Parisian Lake and try and follow it to the west. And then it seems like it connects with another zone called Moon Lake. So that could become a 5-kilometer long mineralized trend if we fill in that gap. And then it becomes a pretty significant palladium resource on its own, a potential resource.
Having said that, we'd like to use the drilling we're doing now to get our share price up, so that we're not exploring at East Bull Lake using 10-cent dollars or 15 cents. So it's we think in the short term, the best bang for the buck is in Manitoba and on the base metal projects and the lithium. That's why we're doing it, and that we certainly feel East Bull Lake down the road is a very, very significant target. It's just, they're not easy to find. So, that project is, we have enough assessment work to hold on to that project for probably 10 years now. So that we don't have any pressure in terms of financial pressure of having to spend money or make payments to keep the property. So, that's, we do have a lot of properties. We've some people have said we got too many properties, but I think the key is being able to hold these properties without big payments, and as in the case of East Bull Lake, we've got a lot of new information. I think Dave didn't mention, but Reed Keys down in Australia, who's a real PGE nickel expert, did a lot of the mineralogical work to come up and help Dave come up with these conclusions. about the relationship to Sudbury. And, you don't do those things overnight. They take some time. And it's a very positive development. And then we'll turn around and say, okay, now how do we apply that to the project and the state it's in, and, try to move it forward. But if you only have one project, well, you're going to go through a lot of lulls and periods of time. And I think, Taylor, you'd agree, it's not easy to find any good projects if you're starting out right now. So having some projects that we've had for a long time, and, that have in the case of our Manitoba, significant resource, in East Bull Lake, a lot of data, a lot, information, lithium, historical work. I mean, all these things, that they're very, very difficult to find at any kind of reasonable price now. And in the case of Grid, we have a number of these projects. Bannockburn's another example. The trick for us is to really, focus our efforts and create some momentum from our exploration activities. Get that into the stock, get the stock price up, and really get some more market attention on that, and then be able to access funding at a much higher level, or through some kind of innovative structure by royalty, offtake, sale of a project interest, which is less dilutive to the shareholders, but still be able to move these projects ahead. So that's really our in a nutshell, our philosophy about how we want to progress this company in the next couple of years.
Perfect. Okay, another question came in. Who does your geophysical interpretations at East Bull?
Yeah, for the last 2 years, we've been working with Kevin Stevens, who's a very well-known magmatic sulfide geophysicist. Long career with Falconbridge, lots of discoveries under his belt at Sudbury and elsewhere. So he's been terrific, sort of a support person for us. And hopefully we'll be able to continue working with Kevin as we go back and look at the massive sulfide targets in particular.
Okay. So turning to Bannockburn, just wondering what type of what metallurgical work do you have lined up or plan to do this year?
Yeah, we're just engaging in the process of signing a contract with SGS, and they've done a lot of work with Canada Nickel as well. And the first step there is the sort of quantitative mineralogical assessment. So we'll take a suite of representative samples, probably initially something like 20 samples that cover the range of grade and sulfur contents. And they can basically work through this. It's something like an MLA, but it's a new system. And it's very efficient at calibrating the mineralogy. So you get an estimate of the percent of nickel sulfide minerals, what minerals are present. We expect to see a lot of hazelwoodite, which is that really high tenor nickel sulfide mineral. And then they can actually give you a sort of preliminary indication of expected recoveries. It's not the same as doing a MET test, but that's sort of the next step after that. So if we get favorable mineralogy, if it's comparable to what they have at Crawford, we'd move on to formal mineral processing tests, MET testing, and do the flotation work and bench scale tests.
Okay, great. Turning to, I guess Macro Mayville here, the drilling that's underway, is there a timeline to get to like a revamped PEA?
Yes and no. The yes part is if the drilling results meet or exceed our expectations in terms of MACWA, then we do that because then we have guidance on where would we focus the drills for additional resources. So if we wanted to add to it, what's going to make the difference? You can do it on the back of an envelope and say, well, we need to find this and this, but we actually have the targets, we have the mineralized trends around the pit resources. We're just going to see what the grades are of these exploration holes, which ones hold together, which have the greatest promise to add value to the overall project. And then that might be the starting point of the PEA. We're thinking about something this summer. We're building a project team to, basically take this through feasibility. And then, if that's positive, obviously look for financing and start the permitting process. Starting baseline environmental work again this summer. So the projects really could be on a very shortened timeline to get to a production decision. So adding the resources is key. We wanted to go back and bulk up the resources, but also improve the high grade component. So add, the net smelter value of the resources going into the PEA or the feasibility study are as best as they can be. And so the projects were sort of left at a point where that would have been the next step. But because of market conditions at the time, the pizzazz went out of nickel pretty quickly after the financial crisis. So it was a tough time for Grid. We've been able to hold on to the projects, and now it's the time to get them moving quickly.
Okay, perfect. I think this is kind of last question up. Just wondering on Donner Lake, how the drill program this year, how much drilling would need to be done to kind of, I guess, upgrade that historical resource or come up with a modern resource there?
Generally, if we just wanted to, confirm and make a compliant resource that matches what was done before, it's going to be around 10,000 meters. We already got a start on it from the 2018 drilling on the main dikes. That covers the upper 100 meters. So we've already designed a kind of resource drilling plan to take it down to 250. We could execute that. It's about 7,000 meters total, and that would get that part of the historic resource back in, compliant resource estimate. And then the other dikes really are at the exploration stage. So until we know how big they are, there's a lot of swamp here. It isn't like a lot of pegmatite properties where there's high ridges. There are some outcrops of the pegmatites, but really low lying. So we've actually got to drill to find it and trace them. Once we establish the thickness, grade, and strike length, then we worry about designing the resource drilling plan. So it's going to be a two-stage process. This is the first stage. The resource drilling is the second stage. And we're already getting ready to put in our exploration permits applications for that next phase.
Okay, perfect. So I know, Robin, you kind of went over the new strategy for Grid here and kind of outlined what you're doing. Not sure if you have any other kind of final words that you want to leave with investors before we wrap up here.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting time for us, and I think what we want to impress on people is that we're trying to focus in the areas that the assets in our portfolio that can move the needle the most for us, and that's why we're back in at our Mayville project and the lithium project, and that's a combination of the stage of project and the commodities and the market interest in those types of projects, and our assessment of what it is that we can achieve. So all that wrapped up is to say that we plan to put the funds we've raised here recently to really good work, and using all our efforts to translate the money we're spending into share appreciation and advance our projects.
Perfect. So with that, I'd like to thank both Robin and Dave from Grid Metals for taking the time to host the webinar today with Red Cloud Securities, and thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in with us.